So it's about time I did my seasonal rankings. I figured this time around I'm going to do a 1v1 list and then I'll just sort and quickly do a 2v2 list after. But right now, I think everything's actually pretty closely ranked, at least when you're looking at 1v1s. 2v2s, there's going to be a little more of a gap, but as you can see in the 1v1 list, we go from S tier down to A- tier, so let's get into it. Axe is going to be an S tier because ease of use, right? It has the killing power. Some of the moves are, in my opinion, way too fast, and the damage buildup is insanely good. One thing in particular that I really think is good about Axe is the Sidelight Sarah combo you can get on it at any decks, right? There's no difference between 2 decks and like 7 decks on an Axe when it comes to that, so that's really nice. Blasters, I'm gonna go ahead and put them in A+ tier, and I'm also gonna try and rank all the weapons as well. I just want to make that known now before I get in any further. Blasters, they're extremely fast. They don't really feel like any of the moves have end lag. D-Light Recovery is a great killing option, and also the damage that you can get on them is insane. The biggest problem, I would say, for blasters though is the fact that off some reads, like right, say your opponent dodges into your end light off the ground, well, you're not going to have any sort of guaranteed follow-up, and that really sucks for the weapon. So blasters, I think though, being an A+, that's really good. The dead zones also hurt it, but it's a super solid weapon. I'm going to go ahead and put bow in S tier. If it wasn't in S tier, it would be at the top of A+. I think bow, it can lack killing power, at least on the top and on the sides, but you do have power with ground pound, and also dare can be pretty good. The characters that have bow as well, there's a lot of different things you can get with them. For example, Koji, right? You hit a D-Light Ensig, that's 1 frame. So if they have no dodge, that's a great killing option, but it's also character specific. Nair on bow is possibly the easiest move in the game to hit. It's also super risk-free, and that's a very nice thing about bow in general. One thing though is that sidelight on the ground, you're not necessarily going to always have a guaranteed follow-up, even if it shows to be a 1 frame follow-up into D-Light a lot of the times. It can be annoying when people like jump out of it. Another thing is like Diana. Diana has a D-Light Ensig on bow, and it can be hit true as well. I would say bow is one of the weapons that is affected by dex more, which is kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, if you're playing a character like Kaya, you're not necessarily going to feel it. You're going to lose out on some things at low dex, but it's nothing to truly be missed. I think Canon can sit comfortably at A. Maybe you can argue that it can be moved up to A+. I just feel like a lot of the time when you're playing against a Canon, it can feel amazing to just run someone down with Canon, right? Using Sarah, just using that move to like flow into different strings and combos. A lot of the moves have drift. Recovery is a really wacky hitbox. I would say ground pound, same thing, just a very strange hitboxing in the ways it can hit. Also, moves like Nair can feel super safe to use if the opponent's just lurking above you. With all that being said though, I feel like if you can slow down the pace against Canon, the threat of it is severely reduced. Also, the strings you can get, Canon's deadliest in neutral, right? If you're going to burn your dodge on stage, there's a chance you can just get 0 to death, but if you're able to kind of play patiently and really know where you got to dodge, then I think the chances of Canon actually catching you with something like some big string is much lower than other weapons on this list, so that's why I'm going to put it in A. Gauntlets, without a doubt, in my mind, one of the best weapons in the game. I think Gauntlets have an insane matchup into a weapon like Axe. With that being said, though, I don't think it's like, you know, like 70-30 or something. At best, I would say the Axe Gauntlet matchup is like 60-40. I will say, though, bow is a great counter to gauntlets, right? Gauntlets, though, off stage is incredible. I mean, it's so easy to play gauntlets off stage. Moves like Nair, Sarah, recovery even, just anywhere you use them, you're going to feel super safe. Sidelight is a move that is basically impossible for certain weapons to punish, namely hammer, I would say. But yeah, gauntlets, I mean, they have the gimp potential, right? They have the string and combo potential. D-Light combos into like anything, and also the reads you can do like sidelight into GC sidelight, like that's such an easy read. It's not exactly a 50-50, but it's basically like, okay, I don't know what else to do here for a read, so let me open up with the sidelight and then choose if I want to do a gravity cancel sidelight, left or right. I think hammer is a weapon that's kind of polarizing for a lot of people. Either you're probably playing hammer and you're going to be thinking, oh, well, this weapon loses to XYZ matchups, right? I mentioned the Gauntlet matchup. It's not very great into that. With that being said, though, if you're on the other end, right, and you're playing against Hammer and you're having a lot of these recovery cheeses into weapon throws happen to you, you're probably going to be thinking Hammer's an S tier weapon, or at least very, very good. And I would have to say that although Hammer does have some of the goofiest things about it, right? Like the fact that the recovery can, I don't want to say spike, but it sends downward, and you can basically force the opponent to either take a weapon throw hit to the face with the biggest weapon in the game, or they can just burn their dodge. It can set up into some really nice, and I don't want to say particularly easy edge guards, but when you look at players like Luna and Java, I would say those two, I mean, you know, they have set the map for Hammer, Java in particular, what you can do with it off stage. And if you play it right, you're going to be able to just completely lock people down off stage. Also, the time to kill is extremely early, right? Characters like Bodvar are great because on Sword, you can be moving in and out, weaving in and out, and racking up damage with Sword. But then when you need to kill, you can just swap over to Hammer. And if you can land that Stomp, then you're going to have Stomp Sare or maybe Stomp Dare to kill, and that's just really, really good. In my mind, I would have to say that the issue with Katars that I see the most is not the fact that, you know, the offstage is bad or the neutral's bad. I would say it's the fact that there's not very, there's a lot of inconsistencies. When you look at stuff like D-Light into Dare on Katars, that's something people have been complaining about on Katars forever now, right? They've been doing changes to Katars, but it doesn't necessarily seem like much has helped. Obviously, you have like the grounded Nair into Sidelight, or D-Light, I believe you can do, but I know you can do Nair, Sidelight, D-Light at a certain dex. Not gonna be able to tell you right off the top of my head what that is, but you know, there are certain things that have helped Katars recently, but Katars are still just not there. If they're played right, I think they can do a lot, and I think that they can be played to a championship level. But with that being said, it's like they lack the combos. Sometimes the way you get setups isn't necessarily going to work out how you think, and I think that can be very, very detrimental to a player. And, you know, it's also a question of, okay, why play Katars right now when I can play, like, Gauntlets? That's really it. Okay, right now I have Lance below Blasters. Lance actually won the most recent championship. It actually won Steel Series 2v2s, I believe. In EU, Fozy was playing Orion. And then in NA, Steel Series 1v1s, Stingray won with Orion. So, I mean, maybe it's just Orion. I don't know. I mean, Orion's an insane legend. Like, the Lance kit's fantastic. But aside from that, Lance has great damage build. The ability to basically survive most gimps is insane. I think that's why, like, the matchup with Scythe is so bad for Scythe, because just unless you're hitting, like, ground pounds and just really able to consistently edgeguard over and over and over again against the Lance player, it becomes really, really hard unless you have some sort of, like, super hard hitting or just a move that really spikes the Lance user down. That's why Gauntlets, I think, are a good matchup. Also because Gauntlets cover the dead zones of Lance, right? Because a lot of the times Lance players, when they're in the air, they're going to be using moves like Nair and Sare a lot. Now, with that being said, I think the Dare change helped insane, like, amounts, because now Dare is super quick. It doesn't feel like super laggy, right? You can kind of get away with just dipping down, doing a Dare, and that can be really, really nice to use. You can do Dare into Sare off stage. I believe that's true at like 80 health, if I'm not mistaken. That's more niche. I would just say the damage buildup you can get, the movement, right? The survivability off stage to a certain degree. I mean, I will say once you are forced to use a Lance recovery, right, and you're low enough, you're kind of screwed. You're kind of just going to die to like a weapon throw. Or just a simple edge guard. There's not much you can do there. Offstage is obviously Lance's weakest point, but there still are workarounds for it. And I'm interested to see what happens in the Spring Championship 1s coming up this weekend with Lance. Honestly, I'm going to put Orb above Axe and below Gauntlets. I think Orb is a weapon that has so much potential. I mean, the ability to combo and just string out of literally any move is insane. It has all the combo options. It has all the string options. The killing off the sides in particular, right, is not great, but ground pound and Dare are awesome moves. Recovery is so hard to punish, and it hits in a lot of like really odd spots, right? You can like dodge through a recovery basically, and you're still gonna end up taking the hit. I mean, aside from that, Orb just is super quick. You're able to just throw out moves and kind of like float around, really, really unpunishable. I would also say the fact that Dare has 3 variants is really, really good, and the ways you can apply it, like to edge guarding in particular, is insane, right? There's like a sweet spot on the wall. If you hit a Dare with Orb on the wall, I mean, you know, it'll like have like a super extension where it feels like it's basically doubling its length. But even if you don't get that, you can still smash your face into the wall for an edge guard. You can sit over ledge and have like an insane angle where you're peeking over the ledge, but you yourself, you're not in any position to really get punished, and the opponent can still get edge guard. So that's really, really good. And also on stage, if you approached with Dare, it can bounce up off the ground, and you might be able to get some follow-ups with that as well. So Orb, as a general, great damage buildup, great strings, great combos, great everything aside from killing off the sides. Scythe is a tough one for me to place. I think it can outplay a weapon like Axe, but with that being said, I think Axe does have the advantage, not because of ease of use or something like that, but I would say in the area of killing more consistently. If you're not finding the gimps, which by far I think the easy on-stage reads, right? If you do an active input side light into an end light, you can cover so many different options and you're going to get so much damage with that. But if you're not finding signatures usually, or gimps, it's going to be really hard to kill on Scythe, and I think that's why I would have to put it below a weapon like Axe, but it still would be above Bow, because Bow also, right, there's a lot of moves that are easy to land on Bow, but they don't necessarily guarantee a kill or necessarily guarantee a follow-up. So if you're crazy with Scythe, you're hitting all the reads, Scythe may as well be the best weapon in the game, but you have to be ready to catch all of those. And even if you are ready to catch all those dodges, it doesn't necessarily matter because your opponent might do an option that you simply can't cover or can't punish. Simple as that. Personally for me, I would say Spear is another one that's kind of hard to place. Honestly, I would probably put in ones, I would say Spear would go at the bottom of A+. Spear is just a weapon where if you're able to catch those sidelight reads, and there was a recent buff to sidelight, it can be very, very nice. But also Spear can feel a little weird if you're playing it below 6 dex, because at 6 dex, I mean, that seems to be the sweet spot for Spear, right? You have Sarah into Endlight consistently at early healths, and then I don't know what else you gain from it. I don't think there's anything insane. But with that being said, just overall, you're going to notice a difference in fluidity compared to, say, like a 3-deck Spear. But with that being said, the damage buildup is great. The kill options overall can be pretty good. I would say that the off-stage with Spear can be a little sketchy, at least recovering back to stage. But if you're the person edge guarding, a move like Dare is insane. Dare's so good on Spear. There's possibly... Dare on Spear is possibly one of the best dares in the game in my mind, but I would say, and you know, obviously I'll change placements, but in 2s, that's where Spear really, really shines. All right, Sword. I think Sword is just, you know, not much to really say about it aside from extremely well-rounded. You're going to be able to find kills relatively consistently unless your recoveries are dropping. You can do D-Light Dare into recovery still at a specific health. I think it's like 160 or 170. I'm not entirely sure, but I know it's around there. And basically, if you do D-Light Dare recovery, then it's going to be an optimal kill. But because there's no percents in this game, it's almost like it's hard to tell when exactly you can use that optimization. So it's hard to really consider that as a huge benefit or even much of a benefit at all. Moves like Endlight and Sidelight I think still are great. It's just a great like secondary weapon to have, or even primary. When you supplement like gauntlets, axe, any move in or any weapon in the game with Sword, I think you're gonna be fine. You always have something to fall back on, right? If your Sword is solid, then you're basically safe in like every matchup. With that being said though, I am putting it below Hammer just because I think Hammer does kill earlier. Off stage, I think in certain situations can probably be better for Hammer, and a large part of that is because of the weapon throw difference, right? Sword, tiny. Hammer, large. All right, Greatsword. I don't know if this is necessarily a hot take, but I think Greatsword can be put in S tier. If I wasn't putting it in S tier, I'd probably put it like top of A+. The only person right now that we're really seeing play Greatsword is Hardy MJ. Now, I will say Greatsword has not been seen offline yet, but obviously the weapon's not in any sort of peak state. I don't know if we'll ever see Greatsword, and I honestly hope we don't see Greatsword anywhere near the state it was initially upon release. I know Hardy has complained about Greatsword kind of being inconsistent in some regards on certain like follow-ups and stuff, and people being able to kind of jump out of moves where it feels like they shouldn't be able to escape like the strings you have. But just by design, I think Greatsword's insane. And when you do catch those dodges, I mean, they can die in like orange, right? There's basically built-in signatures to the weapon, and just having the ability to mix up options so well, I think is fantastic. Also, Dare and Nair, I think are incredible. I would probably say the weakest move on Greatsword would probably be Sair, just because it doesn't feel that great to use. It's kind of clunky, but I mean, when you hit it, you get a decent reward. It's nothing to write home about. Greatsword also is a very big weapon. I remember the first time I played Hardy's Greatsword, and I lost to him in tournament with it the first time I played it. I just remember him really abusing weapon throws so much with Greatsword, right? Like, he would force my dodge out, and then he would end up getting like a 3-piece on me, or just something where he would be able to get like a setup, and it would allow him to approach a lot easier. Also with Greatsword, because like basically all of the stuff, you need to be grounded to really get the strings off. Well, grounded dodge cooldown is a lot lower, so basically people can spot dodge, throw out a move, or throw out a move, spot dodge, and they're able to get their dodge back super fast, and that allows for basically this cycle of basically the Greatsword user always having a dodge available, and that's insane. So this is my finalized 1v1 list. With that being said, though, you guys are going to see the 2v2 list in 3, 2, 1. And here's the 2v2 list. As you can see, I added some tiers and obviously shifted some things around. At the bottom of the barrel, Katars, it just feels like, why really would you ever play Katars in 2s? I think the best time to play Katars in 2s is if, and really only if, you're playing with a spear player, just because of the way the setups work. Obviously, if you're good enough, you can get away with playing them, and they might feel really good in certain situations, especially for like a counter pick. But aside from that, unless you're playing like Ragnar or maybe even Queen Nai, I don't know, it's just a question of why would you really ever play Katars in 2s? A tier above are both Greatsword and Scythe. Both of them, you know, you can really be getting off a lot of things, but I would say Greatsword requires a lot of stage to have just to get these big strings off, and if you're just getting single hits, it might not really feel worth it. And as far as like implementing Greatsword into team combos, it's going to be a lot harder than other weapons. On the other hand, Scythe can be great for team combos, but if you're not really able to utilize like the signatures, or if you're just not really able to get stuff started, especially when you're looking at the weapons in S tier, it's going to be a lot harder to really get things going with Scythe. It might just not feel as good to use, especially because it's going to take a lot of time to get those gimps, whereas like when you look at gauntlets, for example, the time to kill on gauntlets off stage can be much quicker than it can be for Scythe, and that's a lot of the time is due to the fact that the angles that gauntlets offer with the moves, like when they hit ground pound Sair, it's just a much better angle overall. And then a tier above, of course, Lance. It can seem weird, it takes up a lot of space, but it does do damage. It can be comboed with, not horribly hard, but at the same time, a lot of the weapons at the top, I would say it can lose to, but it can have its place, especially if you're experienced with it. In the A+ tier, we have Canon, Orb, Bow, and Blasters. Just a couple notes. I mean, Canon, right? You're moving around a lot. It can be hard to track you. I would say that's the same situation for Bow and Orb. I would say Orb probably can offer some of the better combos, but with that being said, Bow, you can probably manage a better range and really keep yourself out of harm's way a lot better. If you're hitting moves on Orb and Canon, I mean, you're just going to be bouncing around left to right, and kind of the same thing with Bow. But personally, I would say that above those would probably be Blasters. Now, with that being said, I know some of you might think Blasters are the best weapon in 2s, and on paper, yeah, because the 2v1 potential is insane, the damage buildup's great, and the ability to do team combos is ridiculously easy, right? And that's coming from someone who's playing with a Blasters player. But with that being said, I think there's a reason as to why, at least in North America, we're only seeing 2 Blaster players, and they are Boomy and Cody, right? Blasters, they're not a super easy weapon to play, especially when you're looking at all these other weapons that can really, really do well into it. I think there's a lot of matchups, and especially in 2s, if the Blaster player just gets swarmed, that can be a nightmare for them to really start getting moves off. And also, some of the moves have a lot of animation, and they take a long time to complete. So if you hit like an Enlight, right, or even a Dare on Blasters, you better hope that the teammate that they have on the opponent side isn't always there ready to help their teammate. Otherwise, you're probably never going to get a move off, or if you do, it's going to be super rare. Recovery also is a great example. It takes a long time to get recovery off. I mean, recovery is great for team combos, right? Especially you get like a D-Light recovery even on your own. I mean, it's going to be awesome because it might kill, but at the same time, that's a lot of time for an opponent to just come over and knock you out of your recovery. So that can be really, really frustrating and annoying to play when you have blasters in your hand. And S tier, I mean, this is nothing new. I think most people can expect Axe and Gauntlets kind of being interchangeably number 1 and 2. Personally, I would probably have Axe just because of the ease of use, be it number 1. There's a lot of simple combos you can do with Axe, right? You can do End-Light into Side-Light Nair, and then you can hit Nair into Nair into Nair just because the DI is so odd with Axe. Same with Dare, right? You can do Dare into Dare into Dare on Axe because the DI, right? They can DI up, which sets up perfectly for another Dare. They could DI down, which sets up perfectly for another Dare. And if they DI to like the sides, that can still possibly set up for another Dare. And that's just basically due to the way Axe hitboxes are. They cover a lot of like half circles. So that's very, very nice. Gauntlet, same thing. There's a lot of combos you can do where DI is actually way harder than what it seems. And also the Gimp potential is just insane. I mean, you're getting swarmed by a pair of gauntlets. Like, it can be absolutely ridiculous, right? Looking back to like the blasters issue I was talking about, you got 2 gauntlet users on you and you're playing blasters. I mean, it's gonna be so hard to play blasters, and if you win on blasters, you are 100% outplaying them. I'll just say that much. Spear, maybe this is just me talking. I love Spear in 2s, and I think Spear in 2s is 100% one of the best weapons to play. I think it's a great support tool. I think it offers follow-ups. It offers a lot of good edge guarding tools. You can manage range really, really well with a lot of the moves between End-Light, between Sair, between Dare, and Nair offers really easy reads, and it also provides safety for you when you're like following up off of a side light. Spear is just a weapon that I really feel like, I mean, you know, I don't want to toot my own horn, but aside from me, and then in the past we've seen Boomy, I mean, obviously Stingray plays a lot of Spear Legends. There's not a ton of people really using it. Simba, I will say, uses Spear, but there's not a ton of people in NA, I'll only speak for NA in this case, that are really using it, that are making it to grand finals and stuff, which, you know, obviously there's alternatives with Axe and Gauntlets and Hammer and Sword, but at the same time, I think the potential for Spear is just insanely high. For Hammer, I'm not really going to say much aside from the fact that the stuff I said in 1v1s carries over. Also, the fact that just the moves in general, the hitboxes are pretty large. You can just kind of swing on Hammer, and sometimes it'll work in 2v2s. And yeah. Sword, another one that provides just insanely easy follow-ups. It pairs well with basically any other weapon in the game. And it's just, you know, the bread and butter of the game. Like, if you have a sword, you're going to be able to find success in 1v1s and 2v2s if you just play it well enough. But that's my 1v1 and 2v2 list, guys. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you want me to do the 1v1 and 2v2s, or if you'd rather see a more like overall tier list like what I've done in the past. I kind of felt like I tried something different. So yeah, just let me know if you like this better, and the Legends tier list will be on its way. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one, guys. Peace out.